classic iconic pistol with a fierce loyalty to it during its service was the M1911. This pistol is a favourite in many video games and has been featured in the majority of Battlefield games since the first Battlefield. This video will show you its history, mechanics, and how it's used in Battlefield 6, so keep watching to learn about its long 80-year career as a sidearm. Before the 1900s, there was a call out for a new, more powerful sidearm with better stopping power compared to the current standard issue revolvers. Though it was said that the Colt 38 revolvers were quick to fire and reload, in some cases the bullet penetration was not enough. This was seen in particular, for example, during a fight between the Moro tribes in the Philippines and the Americans. These natives would get so strung out on opium that they could tank 5 shots from these revolvers before going down. At that point, it may have been already too late for the shooter. The use of the Krag-Jorgensen rifles issued were also pretty ineffective. Army Ordnance thought it was time for a more practical alternative and used experiments to determine the ideal cartridge size that would be the most effective. This was determined to be a 45 ACP. The M1911 was built around this cartridge by John Moses Browning, inspired by the Army's urgent need for a more powerful, reliable, and effective sidearm. From the start of the 1900s, a number of predecessors of the M1911 were developed with little success. The others that were designed were more clunky but displayed some advantages. One notable one being the Luger. This became a competitor in the Army pistol trials along with the Savage automatic and other designs. The Army Ordnance had a contract for the best sidearm to meet their specifications. They require a 45 cartridge, minimum 6 rounds, trigger pull of less than 6 pounds, vertical ejections, and for them to be easily taken apart. In 1906, Army Ordnance publicly released their specifications to gun manufacturers eager to land a government contract. At the time, the only effective automatics were the 7.63mm or the 9mm pistols, neither of which had the desired stopping power. With an enticing financial incentive at stake, big-name arms producers began designing new models to be submitted into what would come to be known as the 1907 Army pistol trials. Again, they required a 45 cartridge, minimum 6 rounds, trigger pull of less than 6 pounds, vertical ejections, and for them to be taken apart easily. The Luger didn't catch on despite its ergonomic advantage due to the difference in gunpowder in America, so it remained with its German contractors. In the end, it was between the Colt automatic and the Savage sidearms. Over the past few years, Browning had made many improvements resulting in the final product that would go up against the Savage, such as changing the hammer barrel grip type and making it easier for disassembly. Another change was using a single link for the barrel instead of 2, making feeding better. The Colt was successful over the Savage after testing shown that the M1911 was much more reliable when placed in poor conditions, resulting in less jams and even being able to fire in water with sand poured into its chamber. In March 1911, the Army adopted the M1911 as the standard issue. The M1911 has a length of 8.25 inches and is a slide-operated semi-automatic pistol, which can hold 7 rounds in the mag and 1 in the chamber, but more modern variants could hold 8 and 1 in the chamber. The M1911 came to its true test of trustworthiness in its first major conflict, World War I. Skeptics in the Army questioned how practical a sidearm would be in a modern war, so only 75,000 pistols were added to the Army arsenal. Keep in mind that World War I was a very new type of war unfamiliar to opposing sides, because of the use of strategies that involve technology not yet used in war. At the beginning, countries also thought that the war would not continue for long, and the battles would bring honor and prestige in great fights against each other. They were not prepared for the reality of what was to come. The pistol would become a last resort for infantry in the trenches. In these cramped, messy, and brutal mazes, they were dug so infantry had cover in large open fields from artillery and machine gun or bolt-action fire. Soldiers would commonly resort to hand-to-hand fighting, where using a reliable handgun was a massive advantage. Against the German Luger, the M1911 was more lethal and shown the need for high-quality handguns in modern war. The more powerful 45 caliber automatic Colt pistol, or M1911, could knock back an enemy, while the 9mm Luger just did not have the kind of stopping power for this. Due to the low numbers of the M1911 pistol produced for World War I, it was only really reserved for officers, but as a result of its performance and popularity, it replaced the revolver as standard issue quickly and became an integral weapon of the US Army. Though already having an impeccable design, Browning saw ways to improve the M1911 further to become the M1911A1. A shorter trigger, arched mainspring housing, and finger clearance cuts were added. The Germans saw some weapons as overpowered in World War I. For example, they nicknamed the Winchester Model 1897 Trench the Trench Broom, and the Germans filed a complaint in 1916 saying that the gun was illegal according to the Geneva Convention, as it caused unnecessary suffering, conveniently forgetting their use of chlorine and mustard gas first in the war. However, they respected the M1911 due to its reliability and even adopted a Norwegian version of the pistol during World War II. Production of tanks, planes, machine guns and rifles started ramping up in the lead up to the Second World War in the 1930s. Because of this, there was a low stock of M1911A1 sidearms again. Colt, with help from other companies, eventually was able to supply the army with the M1911A1 numbers to supplement infantry. The outstanding performance of the Colt 45 would show up in countless combat records and Medal of Honor citations. It was used in the Korean and Vietnam Wars in addition. Efforts were then made to standardize weapons and ammo with the European allies after NATO. This resulted in the attempt to phase out the Colt 45 for a standard 9mm mainly used in Europe. Ballistic tests showed the Colt's superiority over the 9mm once again, which kept the pistol from retirement for a time. Eventually, a standard 9mm became mandatory, and by that time, it was becoming more difficult to maintain the M1911 stocks. The last was produced in 1945, and they were officially retired in 1985 for the 9mm Beretta. In just under 80 years, the M1911 sidearm became a trusted, dependable addition to the American arsenal and fulfilled its objective to provide superior performance to soldiers on the battlefield in 5 different wars. Outside of the M1911A1, many classic and modern variants have been produced. The Colt Gold Cup, which was popular for competition use. Colt still produces modern M1911s with different features and calibers. For an M1911, the safety is turned off, making the sear free to rotate. The sear holds the hammer in place. It looks like a spike off the back of the M1911. When the slide is pulled back, the barrel is locked into place and the hammer is rotated back. The bullet is pushed into the chamber with the magazine spring. A spring at the front of the pistol pushes the slide forward. When the slide goes forward, the bullet is pushed into the chamber. When the slide is forward, the firing pin will be in line with the bullet. The trigger, when pulled, unlocks the sear, which is holding the hammer. The hammer strikes the firing pin, firing the gun. The recoil will push the slide back. There is an ejector, which is basically just a piece of metal which is behind the cartridge. As the cartridge moves back, it hits off this ejector and the cartridge flies out of the chamber. The slide will move forward and a new bullet will enter the chamber. The sequence can begin again. The Battlefield 6 version of the M1911 is called the M45A1. This version has a great modern aesthetic to it, all the way down to its fine details. It has a lower magazine capacity, but makes up for it in its lethality. The magazine capacity is 8, including 1 round in the chamber, which can be increased to 12. It has a rate of fire of 327 rounds per minute and a velocity of 336 meters per second. When compared this to the older M1911, it has an 8-round capacity, which is the same, a rate of fire of 430 rounds per minute, which is slightly faster than the Battlefield 6 version, and a velocity of 253 meters per second, making the bullet speed a little bit faster in Battlefield 6. Hope you enjoyed this video on the iconic M1911 used in Battlefield 6. Subscribe to not miss out on videos like this in the future, and take it easy.